And we're back, having a good day, having an epic day with Joe. You having a good time so far, Joe?
I'm having a great time. This is fun. Thank you for having me on. This is just, I'm enjoying it. Absolutely.
Good. Your check's in the mail. I pay all my guests to say that. So, but no, in all seriousness, we're going to now get into the experts focus segment of our show. If you didn't watch the beginning of the show, if you're seeing this as kind of a segment, you definitely want to go back and watch Joe's hero's journey and understand how a former military guy had a very bad turning point in his life, and then in the aftermath took all his skills and knowledge, is now out helping people who experience the same or similar things to what he did when he was stuck, and helping them move forward and how he can help you move forward. So in this piece of the episode, Joe, we're going to talk about, are you getting stuck and can't move forward? Before we get into the bullet points, which I'll give the folks, and before we get deep into each of those points, give us a quick overview of what we're going to be talking about in this segment.
Well, we're talking about being stuck. When we're stuck in a place that we're not happy, where we're not feeling successful, where maybe we're feeling powerless or worthless or just general, we don't like it, kind of thing, then a lot of that generally is because of our thoughts. Our thoughts create things. Our thoughts have us making decisions based off of beliefs that are sometimes maybe not where they should be, and we can get stuck. We can get stuck in this quicksand because we repeat the same thought patterns over and over. And if you repeat the same thought patterns, you're going to create the same realities. And the way to do that is to obviously change your thoughts. It all boils down to basically using your thoughts and then making choices to get yourself unstuck from whatever situation you're in, and making choices that'll move you towards your goals.
Awesome. And specifically today we're going to talk about rediscovering core values, breaking the cycle of habitual thinking, and making conscious choices that move you towards your goal. So let's dive into the first one, rediscover your core values. What do you mean by this? And let's talk about this for a little bit.
Well, core values are guidelines. It's a set of beliefs that we have within ourselves that are going to lead us in certain directions. And for some people, core values may be happiness or love. For some people, it's success and fame, fortune, those kinds of things. For some people, it's just loyalty and honesty and those kinds of things. So various different core values, and we all have all of these core values. The list goes on and on. I mean, my core value assessment that I give to clients is 5 pages long. So there's a lot of core values there, and the way that you have to evaluate your core values based on certain life stages that you're in, certain experiences that you've had, because when we're born and as we're being raised as children, we're having beliefs instilled on us from outside forces, from parents, grandparents, school teachers, and we start to take on those beliefs because at the time we're young and we lack the experience to recognize that those are someone else's truths. They're not necessarily our truths, but because we believe them, we make them that way. And a lot of people hold on to these core values for so long in their life. As their life changes, they're holding on to sets of values that no longer serve them. And when you can realign with your core values, because like I said, core values change. A person may have thought at one particular point in their life that having money is only for evil people who take advantage of the world and attract their money through, twirling their mustaches and everything, then and if they're still holding on to that 40 years later and they're stuck and they're not where they want to be, well, that's because that core value is out of date for you. And whenever you're stuck, it's because most of the time you're trying to move forward with a thought process and a belief process that is anchored way in the past, in a place that no longer suits you. And that's where limited beliefs come in. Those are where our limited thinking comes in, the thought processes that hold us back from what it is that we're trying to achieve.
Right, and that's why it's so key to rediscover your core values, and that's why you put it that way of rediscovering, because really what you're doing is you're uncovering what your current core values are and making
Right.
sure, they're still in alignment with where you want to go versus where versus where you were, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it can light a new path to getting there. If your end goal still remains the same, you realign your core values and suddenly you have avenues to reaching that goal that you didn't see before, that you didn't know were there before, because maybe you're okay now with taking this route because this certain core value, you're better aligned with it now than you had been before. So, yeah, I mean, and then not only that, but then the decisions and choices that you make that do send you forward, that do
Well,
help you get to where you want to go. You feel good about them. You feel happy about them because that's you. That's you're able to make this decision and do these things without a cloud hanging over your head.
yeah,
And
exactly. And let me interrupt for a second. When we talk about core values, realistically, aren't all of our decisions made, or shouldn't all of our decisions be made by bouncing them against our core values and say that if this decision is in alignment with our core values, it's easy to say yes, and if this decision if what I'm being asked to do is not in alignment with my core values, I should say no. I mean, isn't that part of the reason why core values are so critically important for people to understand what they are at this point in their life?
absolutely, absolutely. Without knowing where your core values are, I mean, all your decisions are going to be made based off of a value that you have somewhere. Whether that value is actually serving you or not depends on your alignment with it. Like I said, sometimes if you're subscribing to a 20-year-old core value because you refuse to change as you enter different life stages or as different experiences happen to you, if you refuse to change that, then you're still thinking from that mode, and you're never going to move forward from that. Then you wind up being caught in this repeat process that's a perpetuating cycle that never stops, and that keeps you stuck. That keeps you stuck. When you can break out of that and you can think and you can see things in a different perspective based off of realigning your core values, like I said before, there opens up all kinds of avenues. There opens up all kinds of opportunities that that will serve you to help you get where you want to go.
That's great. Now I have a question for you. I know your intake form is it's 5 pages, and as far as the core values go. So, do you separate with folks the difference between a value and a core value? Meaning, a value is something that you can use to make judgments, but if you have to go against it, it's not going to violate your being on the inside. And then a
Right.
smaller subset of core values that you will not violate no matter what, and they are the ultimate guideline. Do you separate the two when you work with clients?
Yes, yes, actually I do. Because what they do with that core value assessment is they go through and there's a process of narrowing it down, and eventually you wind up by the end of this assessment you wind up narrowing it down to basically three core values, three that if you can stay within those three, if all the decisions you make are within those three core values, then you're generally going to be pretty happy with your decision. I mean, sometimes you're going to wind up with a more favorable outcome. You may not like it necessarily, but sometimes making a decision, the hardest and toughest decisions are between good and better and bad and worse. It's easy to make a decision between good and bad. Of course, you're going to make good, right? But good and better or bad and worse, when those are your decisions, sometimes they're not so easy to make. And that's where your core values will come in and help you at least pick the alternative that you can live with as a human being the most, that you can move forward with the most, that's going to bring you the best of all the potential outcomes.
Yeah, and that is so great. It's something that a lot of people people watching this video might be right now saying, well, I know my values. And I would challenge people that one of the advantages of working with Joe is to figure out your core values, because sometimes we believe our values and we make decisions based on what we believe our values are, but we don't, like Joe said, we don't know what they are. Aren't really attuned with what they are or should be today. And we might be making a value-based judgment based on a non-core value, which is almost
That's
as
right.
dangerous as not knowing. Because if you have a non-core value that is guiding your judgment, a non-core value is something that it's not going to hurt you inside if you don't follow, but a core value will. So you really have to worry about getting to those core values. One of the challenges, Joe, and I think you and I have talked about this before, is part of the reason that people have such a difficult time in rediscovering their core values is because they're in this habitual thinking mode. In other words, they're in the habit of thinking one way. So let's talk a little bit about habitual thinking, how that can affect people, and maybe what they can do to start breaking the cycle and start to change that.
Okay, well, one of the simplest ways to describe habitual thinking is that you wake up in the morning time and you go through your morning routine. You wake up, you brush your teeth, make a cup of coffee, you shower, you get some breakfast, you get dressed, and you take off on your way to work. You do the same thing every day. It's the same process every day. The process. It goes on, and when you're driving to work, you're taking the same route to work every day. You're taking the same turn lanes. You're making the same left and right turns to get there because you're following this exact same process. And what that is that's habitual thinking. By the time you get to work, you probably don't even remember having driven the route because it's such an ingrained thing that goes on. That's habitual thinking.
And let me interrupt for one quick second, because I don't think you're going to say this because we've talked before about this, but one of the worst things that happens is when it's a Saturday and you're following that same habit, forgetting it's a Saturday, and you get to work, or you leave the house and you go the same direction that you always go when you go to work, even though you wanted to go in the opposite direction because you weren't thinking. I mean, how many times that happened?
Right.
I know it's happened to me a lot. How many times it happened to you, Joe?
Absolutely.
Where you're just in the habit of leaving the house at that time, and your brain, you're not really thinking about where you got to go. So all of a sudden you get at the end of the driveway, you go the normal way, and all of a sudden you're 3 turns in and you're going, dang it, I wanted to go the other way. So, and that's one of the dangers of habitual thinking, is not necessarily continuing to do the same things, but continuing to do the same things when they don't apply anymore, right?
That's right. And, one of the things about that makes habitual thinking so bad for us is when we tend to think these habitual negative thoughts over and over again. A lot of people, let's say someone has self-esteem issues, for example. Well, their self-esteem is so low because they are in this process of thinking so lowly about themselves that they can't see anything positive anymore. It's the same way. It's just like making that right-hand turn you go to work every day, and they're not even thinking about it. They wake up, an opportunity maybe presents itself, and they turn it down, they turn it away because they don't think they're worthy of it, because somewhere they've had this belief ingrained in them that they can't attain something, they're not good enough to attain something, or that maybe they just don't have the ability to do it. They're not powerful enough to create it skill-wise or something along those lines. And when that really holds people up, those are, and they allow themselves to keep thinking this over and over, and then pretty soon they believe it. And then whenever you start to believe it, then you're not moving forward any. You're not processing information within yourself in a way that benefits you. All of a sudden you have become this thought. You have become what you keep thinking about. You have become your own worst enemy in this particular situation with being stuck at where you're at because of a habitual thought process.
Right. And the thing of it is our brains are here to keep us safe. I mean, I'm sure you talk about this. I'll dig into it just quick. I'm sure you talk about this in your book that we're going to tell people about later on, or in other things you coach with clients. Fact of the matter is our brains are here to keep us safe. And our biology and our evolution has made it that way. And safety means consistency. So even people who are depressed, when you ask them if they would rather be undepressed, they will give you a verbal answer of yes. But if you do a brain scan, it's actually the scan of somebody who's lying, even though they're not, and even
Right.
though the world says that that's really kind of messed up, so to speak. It's like, why wouldn't you want to be happy? It's like, well, it's not that they don't. And it's not that people who have bad habits don't want to break their bad habits. It's their brain is preventing them because their brain wants to be safe. Their brain wants to stay in that status quo because change is, change is scary. I mean, just like, you don't want to go to a different part on the when we were evolving, we didn't want to go to a different part on the savannah or wherever we were living because we didn't know what was there and it could be dangerous,
That's
even
right.
if there was no food where you were at, right?
Exactly. And yeah, that's the thing, and that's the comfort zone. What you're referring to is what I like to talk about with the comfort zone. And yeah, you're right. People like to stay inside their comfort zone even when their comfort zone is not particularly comfortable. And they stay in there because they know the tolerances. There's tolerances. They know what they can take. They know how much. They know what to expect. Okay, I'm going to be dealing with pain within my comfort zone here, but I know I can tolerate this much pain because I've been doing it over and over. And well, it's just much more preferable than to all the pain that I could experience if I stepped outside of my comfort zone. And then that's where the habitual thought process is. That was the habit thought. All the pain that I could experience. But you could also experience all of this great joy. You could also experience all of this great freedom. You could also experience a million other things and wonders that you never thought were even possible because your habitual thought process has kept you in this thing of, I'm going to feel pain.
Yeah, exactly. So real quick, is there one, in like 30 seconds or less, is there one tip you could give people to, even before they start working with you, to start to break that cycle of habitual thinking?
Yeah, ask yourself one question. Is this action, or is this thought going to move me closer to where I want to be, or is it going to keep me stuck in the same place where I'm at? And then make your choice based off of that. If you want to move forward, make a choice that's going to move you forward. If you want to stay stuck where you're at, then just keep doing what you've been doing.
Excellent. So for those people who are stuck in this cycle of habitual thinking, the next time, I think what you're saying, Joe, is the next time they have a thought and they have to make a decision, the simplest thing to start doing is to say, is this decision going to move me? Forget about what I think I should do. Is making this decision in this way going to move me forward or not towards where I want to be, right?
Right, absolutely. It's choice. It all boils down to choice. You get to choose how that next action is going to take you. You get to choose it.
Yeah, and I was going to say, it almost seems like, when people are in the cycle of habitual thinking, it almost seems like they can make the decision, and then once they've made it, basically it's like saying, okay, if I follow through with this decision I make, will that take me forward or back? So in other words, it's kind of like if you're not realizing your habitual thinking, you can at least say, okay, I've made this decision. Now that I've made it, will it move me closer or further away from my goal? If it moves me closer, I do it. If I can't see it moving me closer to my goal, or I can't rationalize it moving me closer to my goal, then that sounds like a clue that I might be in the cycle of habitual thinking, right?
Absolutely. And let you know that it's time to think something different.
Exactly. And that takes us into the third point today, which is make a conscious choice that moves you towards your goal. So we already started talking about it. Let's dig deeper into it. Tell us why making a conscious choice that moves you towards your goal is so important.
Well, when you're making, like we were just talking about, when you're in the habit of making choices off of autopilot, which is what I like to call it when we're driving to work and whenever we're getting up and doing the same morning routine every single day, those are autopilot choices. Whether you realize it or not, you're making a choice. You're making a choice to stay in that particular pattern. And you're making a choice because you didn't choose to do something different. So even not making a choice is making a choice, in effect. So how you make a conscious choice to get out of it is when the next time you're faced with a circumstance, rather than acting or reacting or interacting the same way that you had always done before. Because knowing that those same thought patterns are just going to recreate the same outcomes that they've done before, then you have a choice. And you can consciously make a choice and say, hey, no, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to back off of this, and I'm going to do something different than I did before. And by just making that one simple choice to do something different, and then taking the action to do it, you just changed the entire outcome. You just broke a habitual thought cycle.
Well, it's like,
and now all of a sudden it's game on in a whole new world and a whole new way of doing things. Even if it's only different by that much, it's still different. And now all of a sudden there are different variables at play. Now you have a greater chance to succeed because you have more variables to play with, because you're looking at it from a different aspect, because you have made a conscious choice that you're not going to be in the cycle that you were in before. You're not going to live that way anymore. You're going to take charge of your life, and you're going to make these choices that are going to get you to the places you want to be.
Exactly. Well, it goes back to the old days. Think before you act and think before you speak. I mean, it's funny that you don't hear a lot of people talk about that anymore. About think before you say something or think before you act. And I know that some of the people I've coached have had this terrible thing where they've become so habitual in just speaking their mind and believing that everybody will see their good heart, that they get themselves in trouble sometimes. And
I've been there.
So you got to work and say, okay, even if it's not every time, think about what you're going to say real quick, and then and physically think about what you're going to say, and then say it. Not like they talk about at networking meetings where people are thinking about what they're going to say next. That's a whole nother topic. But if you find yourself just blurting things out, it's the same thing in what Joe was talking about. Think about it real quick and think of how it sounds. And that helps to start the chain of making things different, right? Absolutely.
Just doing the one little thing different, and just asking yourself that one little question: is this going to move me closer to my goal? That can cause you to take the one step that breaks you out of the cycle. And I suppose some cycles are good for some people. Absolutely. I mean, you have people who get up and they have a healthy cycle of eating properly and getting morning exercise and getting the proper amount of rest at night and hydrating themselves properly before they start their day. And those are good cycles to be in. And those are if those are the types of cycles that you want to be in, you can create those for yourself. You can create new habitual thought patterns for yourself in ways that are going to benefit you versus the cycles that are not benefiting you. And so you open a whole new world of creation just by choosing your thoughts. So that's the one choice that you have to make is, am I gonna act on this thought or not?
Well, and you brought up something about healthy cycles and about conscious goals, and I just want to run something by you. So on the surface, a cycle of getting enough sleep at night and getting up, hydrating, working out, having a good breakfast, and doing things that make you physically healthy. On the surface, that sounds like a good conscious habitual cycle to be in, right? Sounds like it.
Sounds like it.
Now, that was going to be my question. Even when you have good things that look on the surface and what everybody else would say were good habitual cycles to be in, would you say that people should reevaluate them to see if there are any unintended negative consequences and that they might have to change that cycle?
Oh, sure. Absolutely. Well, I mean, you take a look at someone who is vegan, for example. All right. Me personally, I still eat meat. Okay. I know, sue me. Everybody just get me now. Somebody call PETA on the phone. Yeah, I still eat meat. Right. The thing is that, but a vegan makes a choice that they're going to give up meat, that they're going to give up dairy products, and that they're going to stick strictly to this very strict diet. They also make a choice when they make that their diet just in every meal that they ate just went up in price. They're just it's expensive to eat like a vegan. It's expensive to eat what they do and to prepare the meals the different ways that they prepare them and all that kind of stuff. And so those are choices. Those are choices that they make based off of. So if all of a sudden they're hurting for money, and they're going to have to make different choices. Maybe that's one of the things that they look at. If I make a different choice, if I choose to no longer particularly live this lifestyle, even though it's great and healthy for me, maybe just a vegetarian lifestyle would save me just a little bit more money. I'm compromising a little bit here, but it's win-win on both sides. So,
Well, and that becomes the real big key, is the fact of, and that was kind of the point I was trying to get to, and I'm glad that we're on the same page on that, is say, is it as a whole good or bad? We think it's good, maybe we think it's healthy, but if it's hurting our finances and it's causing more stress in our finances, then is it really the best thing? And that's when you've made a conscious choice to reevaluate your habits, and then you go back and rediscover your core values. Because vegan is a great example. Some people go vegan because they're really opposed to any type of eating any type of animal because they don't believe it's right, and that's great. If it gets to a point where they don't have enough money to feed them and their children, then they have to go back and they should at least go back and make a choice and say, okay, am I going to take the life of an animal over the life of my family? And they might, and that might be the way they go, and they might stick, and that might be their core value, that all life is sacred. The beautiful part about that is if they find out that that is still their core value, then they know they've got to go make more money someplace else. So it gives them the path to go forward with. I mean, is that kind of a fair way to wrap this?
Exactly. Like you said, exactly. They're in the nutshell, because if that was still their core value, then it opens up a path for them to go forward. That's what the core values are doing. They open us up a path. It helps us change our negative thoughts. It helps us change to see how it all works in a cycle like that. Our core values say to go this way. The decision to keep us on top of our core values is the right thing for us to do. So we're going to stay with that. That opens up a new path. Okay, so now we have to go make more money, just like you said. So then there's faced with various different paths and opportunities that come with the next decision of making it. That when you make it to go get more money, then there's another whole process begins again. A whole new alignment of your core values, a whole new thought process that you either got to construct or deconstruct, and then choices that you have to make to go there.
Right, and that's why it's so important to work with a coach like Joe. I mean, today we've been talking all about being stuck and moving forward. In part one, you heard about Joe's hero's journey from somebody in the military to civilian life to a very deep, dark place. And then the aftermath is him putting all his experience together to help folks just like you getting unstuck, because Joe was stuck at one point. And in this piece of the episode, we talked about rediscovering your core values, breaking the cycle of habitual thinking, and making a conscious choice that moves you towards your goal. And you just heard Joe very eloquently wrap it all up to show you how first you make the choice, then you can at least question and possibly break your habitual thinking. You define your core values, and then the loop starts all over again. It doesn't mean you have to change your core values. It just means that you're reconfirming what you've got in place today is working for you, for your family, to make you the biggest success you can be. So the great news is that between now, the time you're watching this video, and the time you start working with Joe as a coach, you can do something awesome and epic, which is read Joe's book. Now, you got to go to, I'm going to punch up Joe's website. There we go. We got Joe's website, JoeVulgamore.com. And if you go to his website, you can actually get his book called Hardwired, A Personal Guide to Success. They can go right to your website and purchase it right from there. Correct, Joe?
Absolutely. Absolutely. That if they purchase it from my website, it'll actually take them to Amazon to be purchasing it from Amazon. It's available in paperback and Kindle.
Awesome. So for all you multitaskers out there who are now shopping on Amazon while listening to Joe and I talk, you want to search for Hardwired, A Personal Guide to Success, or Joe Vulgamore, either one, and get his book. So while you're multitasking, definitely get his book.
Absolutely.
And once again, we're just about to wrap up. So Joe, before we wrap up the episode for today, any final thoughts you want to leave our viewers with?
Well, yeah, the viewers, just think about it. Any situation that you have that you're stuck with, it can be anything. anything, whatever. If you're feeling stuck, if you're feeling unhappy, and you're having a hard time coming to a decision about what to do, about how to get out of it, you can't see the path. Just, the first thing is just check your core values. Check your core values and align yourself with those. And then any decision you make going forward will at least be a decision you can live with in good conscience, a decision you can be happy that you made, and a decision that'll move you closer to the outcome that you want to achieve. And that goes for personal life, professional life. It goes for the white-collar world and the blue-collar world. It goes for the executive world, anywhere you're at in life.
Awesome. Great advice. Great advice, Joe. Loved having you on the show. Thanks for another epic episode. I say another, but yeah, yes, I kind of screwed up the first episode, but that's okay. Thanks for the epic episode today, Joe. Thanks for everything you do for everybody. Folks, get Joe's book. Go to Joe's website. Connect with Joe. Do what you can. He's there to help you get unstuck. And until next time, and until the next episode of Expert Showcase, make it a great day.
To watch the rest of this epic episode now, click on the link below the video. Do it now. You'll be glad you did. Are you still here? What are you waiting for? Watch the rest of this epic episode now by clicking on the link below the video.